Have you ever noticed how silence can sometimes shout louder than words? Many situations unfold around us, but there are moments when the lack of communication becomes oppressive. What happens when the words that should be said get stuck in our throats? This silence, which should merely be a pause, transforms into a weight that drags our souls down to a dark place. I recall a time in my life when silence took over a moment that should have been celebratory. We were all there, old friends, gathered around a table. Laughter echoed, but there was a palpable tension. I looked at a friend who was clearly in internal conflict. He wanted to speak, but the words were stuck. What should have been a joyful conversation turned into a feast of unspoken insecurities. The silence, which could have been a space for reflection, became an abyss that drew us further apart. It's curious how silence can hide deep emotions. Sometimes it reflects past hurts or truths that have never been voiced. In a relationship, what remains unsaid can be just as devastating as an open fight. What goes unspoken accumulates, transforming into an invisible wall that separates people. At that same table, amidst the muffled laughter, I realized there was an unrequited love hanging in the air. What could have been addressed, discussed, and perhaps even resolved was forgotten, swallowed by silence. Sometimes silence is a desperate cry for help. It can be the most sincere way to express the pain we can't verbalize. It's in that space where tears become witnesses to suffocated feelings. A conversation that could have healed wounds turns into a distant echo, and the weight of what was left unsaid leads us to believe that the solution is simply not to speak. But this silence is not just uncomfortable, it is unbearable. When communication breaks down, we start living with an emotional iceberg. The visible part is what is spoken, but most of the feelings, the anxieties, and the truths remain submerged. A gesture of affection, a sympathetic glance, everything becomes superficial, as if we are floating in an ocean of lost words. And what remains? The feeling of loneliness in a crowd. The climax of this silence can be devastating. One day, that friend who had been suffocated by their own words decided to break the silence. It was as if a dam had burst. They shared their insecurities, their frustrations, and finally gave voice to what had silenced them for so long. The table, which had once been a place of discomfort, transformed. The tears that were once silent were now accompanied by laughter. What had gone unsaid became an instrument of liberation. But the lingering question is, how many times have we allowed silence to trap us? How many opportunities for connection and understanding have we missed because we didn't have the courage to express our feelings? The iceberg of silence is vast, and its depth can be terrifying. It takes courage to dive into its depths and recover what has been lost. In the end, perhaps the greatest lesson is recognizing that silence doesn't have to be deafening. We can choose to transform it into a safe space for expression. We need to give voice to what is within us, allowing the words to find their way back to the surface. What was once an unbearable burden can become a foundation of connection and understanding. Recognizing this is the first step to ensuring that a lack of words doesn't shake our ground, and thus the story of silence intertwines with our own. It serves as a reminder that, even in the shadows of unspoken communication, there is always an opportunity for the light of words to shine. Silence, while it may seem like a simple void, carries an emotional weight that we often struggle to fully comprehend. When we set aside communication, we open the door to misunderstandings and insecurities. This is especially evident in close relationships, where the expectation of dialogue is high. What should be a space of support and love transforms into a minefield of resentments and unexpressed feelings. It's interesting to notice how silence takes hold in different contexts. In a family gathering, for example, discomfort can be palpable when a sensitive topic arises. People may avoid looking at one another, and the conversation flows only around superficial topics, while deeper issues remain buried. This choice not to communicate may seem like a shield, but in reality it's a trap that pulls us further apart. The impact of silence isn't limited to moments of celebration or gathering. In conflict situations, the lack of dialogue can be even more detrimental. When two people have a disagreement, what often follows is a prolonged period of silence. Each person harbors their wounds, and the words that could heal remain locked away. This silence becomes a barrier, an obstacle that complicates the resolution of the conflict even further. Moreover, silence is fertile ground for assumption. When communication fails, people start filling the gaps with their own interpretations, often distorted. An unspoken phrase can be interpreted in 1,000 different ways, leading to even more resentment. What could have been an honest conversation turns into a cycle of distrust and insecurity. The experience of confronting silence is not just about what has not been said, it's also about what is felt. Often, emotions are so intense that they become difficult to verbalize. The pressure to express what's inside us can be overwhelming. The fear of being vulnerable, of exposing our weaknesses or being misinterpreted can paralyze us. This paralysis, in turn, feeds the silence, creating a vicious cycle. When we finally decide to break the silence, it is a moment of great revelation. The words that were once trapped begin to flow, and there is a relief that accompanies this release. The act of speaking can be cathartic, but it also brings to the surface the pain that was hidden beneath. Every spoken word carries emotional weight, and the exposed vulnerability can be daunting. However, it is in this moment that true connection can be established. What happens then, when someone opens up and shares their insecurities? It's as if a new dynamic is set in motion. The others present, who also kept their own secrets and silences, may feel compelled to do the same. The act of sharing creates a safe space that encourages honesty and empathy. What was once a tense environment transforms into a place of mutual support. This process of communication is not linear. It requires time and patience. After the words are spoken, there may be a period of adjustment. People need to process what has been shared, and this can lead to new conversations and new revelations. It's a path that requires courage to continue. The connection that forms can be deep, but it can also be challenging as people grapple with their own emotions and reactions. Once the silence is broken, relationships have the opportunity to grow stronger. What was once a space of distance transforms into a place of understanding and support. People start to feel more comfortable expressing their emotions, leading to an environment of trust. This trust is essential for building healthy and lasting relationships. However, it is crucial to remember that not everyone is ready to break the silence at the same time. Each person has their own pace and emotional barriers. It is important to be sensitive to this and create a space where everyone feels comfortable to open up when they are ready. Communication should be an invitation, not a pressure. Ultimately, reflecting on the impact of silence is essential. It can be indicative of the wounds we carry, the stories we haven't told, and the connections we haven't made. Silence can be a cry for help, a plea for someone to notice our pain. Learning to hear that cry is an important step toward empathy and mutual understanding. Awareness of silence and its consequences is an invitation to introspection. What kind of silences are you allowing in your life? What words are still stuck in your throat? And most importantly, how can you start to transform them into meaningful dialogues? As you explore these issues, you may uncover not only the truths that need to be spoken, but also the beauty of the connections that can be formed when we finally choose to speak up. Sometimes, the silence that settles in a conversation is not just a pause, but a reflection of deep emotions that have not been addressed. When we look around, we realize that many feel this way, overwhelmed by unspoken words and hidden truths. This reality can be especially true in family environments, where expectations for communication are high, but meaningful conversations often do not take place. For example, during a family dinner, it is common to notice how certain topics are avoided. The atmosphere may seem relaxed, but the exchanged glances and forced smiles reveal underlying tension. People might avoid bringing up painful experiences, such as separations, losses, or misunderstandings, simply to keep the peace. However, this superficial peace can lead to emotional stagnation. This dynamic becomes even more complicated in conflict situations. When a misunderstanding occurs, the silence that follows can be devastating. People drift apart, holding on to their wounds, and instead of seeking resolution, they often settle into their pain. This cycle of silence and resentment not only makes reconciliation difficult, but also creates a hostile and uncomfortable environment. During these moments, it is essential to recognize that communication is not just about what is said, but also about what is felt. Emotions are often bubbling to the surface, and the pressure to articulate them can be overwhelming. The fear of being misunderstood, of exposing weaknesses, or of causing more pain can paralyze us, and this paralysis further feeds the silence. In fact, what often hinders communication are past experiences. A person may have been discouraged from expressing their feelings in previous situations, leading them to believe that silence is the only safe option. This belief can perpetuate, creating a pattern of disconnection that extends to the closest relationships. The words that could have been liberating become an emotional burden, and thus silence becomes the norm. Breaking this cycle isn't easy, but it is essential for the emotional health of everyone involved. When someone finally decides to speak up, the atmosphere shifts. The act of sharing can be a turning point, bringing to light issues that were hidden. This openness not only allows pain to be acknowledged, but also invites others to open up. After the initial sharing, new conversations often emerge. Others who had been silent may feel inspired to express their own insecurities and fears. A conversation that seemed fraught with tension can transform into a space of mutual support, where people begin to see that they are not alone in their struggles. This exchange creates a deeper bond between participants, establishing an environment of trust and empathy. However, it's important to remember that this journey is not linear. Once the words start to flow, there may be a period of adjustment. People need to process what has been shared, and this can lead to new conversations and revelations. It's not uncommon for doubts and insecurities about what was said to arise after the first conversation. The exposed vulnerability can be daunting, but it's also an opportunity for growth. Moreover, open communication requires courage. There are moments when one must confront difficult truths or make amends. The willingness to expose oneself can be a significant step toward healing, but it can also bring forth emotions that have been suppressed. These conversations, while challenging, have the potential to strengthen relationships and create a deeper understanding among people. Sometimes this communication can extend beyond the immediate circle. When someone breaks the silence, it can inspire others in their network to do the same. By sharing their stories, people may find that their experiences resonate with those of others, creating a domino effect that spreads throughout the community. This cycle of openness can serve as a catalyst for broader change, fostering a culture of healthier communication. However, it is essential to approach communication with sensitivity. Each individual has their own pace and emotional barriers. We cannot force someone to open up before they're ready. Creating a safe environment where people feel comfortable to share is crucial for facilitating this process. The dialogue should be an invitation to vulnerability, a space where everyone feels at ease expressing their emotions without fear of judgment. Reflecting on the impact of silence in our lives is an important exercise. It can serve as a reminder of the wounds we carry and the connections we have failed to establish. Awareness of what has gone unsaid can help us identify the areas where we need to work on our relationships. It is an invitation to introspection and self-understanding. Therefore, as we consider the role of silence in our lives, we must ask, what kind of silences are we allowing? What words are still stuck in our throats? What opportunities for connection are we letting slip away? And how can we begin to transform these silences into meaningful dialogues? The practice of opening up and sharing can be challenging, but it is also deeply rewarding. When we decide to give voice to what's within us, we create space for new connections and understandings. This transformation of silence into dialogue is a vital step in building healthy and meaningful relationships where empathy and understanding can flourish. Breaking the silence is an act that requires courage, and that courage can come from various places. Sometimes, a simple glance or a gesture of support can encourage someone to share what they've been holding inside. It's important to be attentive to these signals and to show that you are available to listen. Empathy plays a crucial role in this process because when someone feels understood, they are more likely to open up. This willingness to listen is one of the keys to creating a safe space where silences can be transformed into meaningful conversations. In a family environment, for example, open communication can be a powerful tool for improving relationships. Often families face challenges that are exacerbated by silence. Issues such as misunderstandings, differences of opinion, or even sensitive topics like health and finances can be sources of conflict. When these matters go unaddressed, they can build up, creating an atmosphere of tension. It's essential to create a space where everyone feels comfortable expressing their concerns without fear of backlash or judgment. Encouraging family conversations can begin with informal gatherings where everyone is encouraged to share their thoughts and feelings. A family dinner, for instance, can be an opportunity to discuss not only everyday events, but also deeper issues. The key is to approach these moments with a spirit of openness and understanding. If a family member shares a concern, it's vital to listen without interrupting or minimizing their emotions. This kind of validation may be just what's needed to encourage others to open up as well. Additionally, it's essential to recognize that not everyone is comfortable discussing their emotions at the same level. Some people may need more time to open up, while others may feel ready to share immediately. Respecting this pace is crucial. Forcing someone to talk before they are ready can cause more harm than good, leading to greater withdrawal and disconnection. As conversations become more frequent and people feel more comfortable expressing themselves, family dynamics can improve significantly. Open communication allows individuals to understand each other's motivations, reducing misunderstandings. Instead of assuming what the other person is thinking or feeling, individuals can ask directly. This practice not only clarifies intentions, but also fosters an environment of transparency and trust. However, even with the best efforts, silence may persist in some situations. Resistance to communication might reflect past experiences where vulnerability was misinterpreted or undervalued. In such cases, seeking external help, like a family therapist or counselor, can be beneficial. The intervention of a professional can provide a neutral perspective and help mediate difficult discussions. Often, an impartial third party can facilitate communication, aiding family members in expressing their concerns without feeling like they are attacking each other. Difficult conversations are an inevitable part of any relationship. However, they don't have to be destructive. When approached with empathy and understanding, they can lead to significant growth. Every conversation is an opportunity to better understand others and oneself. This doesn't mean that all discussions will end in agreement, but the willingness to listen and respect differing opinions can create common ground. As conversations become more frequent, people begin to realize that they are not alone in their struggles. This recognition can be a powerful motivator to keep communicating. Knowing that others face similar challenges can foster a sense of community and support. People feel less isolated and more connected, which is essential for emotional well-being. Additionally, the communication skills learned in a familiar environment can be transferred to other areas of life. The ability to express emotions clearly and respectfully is a valuable skill that can enhance relationships at work, friendships, and even casual social interactions. When individuals feel more confident in their communication abilities, they are more likely to seek meaningful connections in all aspects of their lives. However, it's important to remember that breaking the silence is not an instant process. There may be setbacks and conversations can be challenging. Some people may be reluctant to open up, even in a safe environment. In those moments, patience is key. Creating a space where everyone feels comfortable and respected is an ongoing process that requires effort and commitment. The tears and emotions that arise during these conversations are not signs of weakness. On the contrary, they are expressions of authenticity and humanity. Allowing oneself to feel and express these emotions is a vital step toward healing. The act of sharing vulnerabilities can strengthen bonds between people, creating a deeper understanding and a more meaningful connection. In the end, the goal should always be mutual comprehension. By addressing silence and communication proactively, individuals can transform their relationships. What was once a space of discomfort can become a place of support and growth. The willingness to open up and listen is the foundation for building stronger, healthier ties. Reflecting on the impact of silence and unspoken words is an exercise we all should consider. In doing so, we can uncover not just the truths that need to be spoken, but also the connections that can be formed when we finally choose to speak out. It is an invitation to introspection and empathy, allowing communication to transform our lives in ways we never imagined. Often, silence becomes a weight that we all carry, even without realizing it. This invisible burden can affect not only our personal relationships, but also our mental and emotional health. What happens when we set aside communication? The consequences can be deep and lasting, leading to negative impacts that extend throughout our lives. When silence takes hold, it often creates a space where anxiety and insecurity thrive. People begin to feel isolated, even when surrounded by friends and family. This feeling of loneliness can be overwhelming. Communication, which should be a cornerstone of support, transforms into a minefield where each step is taken cautiously, fearing that any word might trigger an explosion of repressed emotions. The lack of dialogue can create a vicious cycle of misunderstandings. Without the opportunity to express what we really think and feel, people often start to guess the intentions and feelings of others. This leads to misunderstandings and often results in even greater distance. Relationships that could flourish become increasingly fragile, like a plant that isn't receiving light or water. It's important to recognize that silence can also be a form of resistance. Sometimes people choose not to speak because they fear the other person's reaction. This hesitation can be fueled by past experiences where vulnerability was poorly received, creating an emotional barrier. The idea of exposing oneself and being rejected can be terrifying, and often we prefer the safety of silence over the risk of confrontation. When we decide to confront this silence, it's crucial to approach it with sensitivity. Communication shouldn't be forced. It should come from a genuine desire to understand and be understood. It's necessary to cultivate an environment where everyone feels comfortable opening up. This involves not only listening but also validating the other person's feelings, even if we don't agree with them. Often, the first step to breaking the silence is the hardest one. It can be as simple as a gentle touch on the arm or a sincere question that encourages someone to share what they've been holding back. These moments of connection are precious and should be cherished. When someone decides to open up, it's an opportunity to create a safe space that invites others to do the same. Active listening plays a crucial role in this process. When someone is speaking, it's important to pay attention, show empathy, and avoid interruptions. This not only demonstrates that you care, but also creates an environment where the other person feels valued. This interaction can lead to deeper and more meaningful conversations over time. After an open dialogue, it's natural to feel a sense of relief, but vulnerability may also arise. Some people may feel vulnerable after sharing their insecurities, and it's essential to respect that space. Communication is not just about conveying information, it's also about building bonds and connections. When people feel safe to share, they are more likely to open up again in the future, creating a positive cycle of communication. Sometimes, what may be needed is a mediator. In situations where silence has become oppressive, a professional's help can be invaluable. Having a neutral third party can help clarify misunderstandings and facilitate communication. This can be particularly useful in complicated family dynamics, where emotions run high and the fear of conflict can be paralyzing. Communication should not be viewed as a burden, but as an opportunity for growth. Every conversation is a chance to learn more about oneself and others. This doesn't mean that all conversations will be easy or that conflicts won't arise. In fact, often the most challenging conversations are the ones that yield the greatest benefits. Facing these discussions head-on is essential for strengthening bonds and fostering a healthy environment. Another important aspect to consider is timing. People have different paces when it comes to opening up. Some may need more time to process their emotions before feeling ready to share. It's crucial to be patient and respect this process. Forcing someone to speak before they're ready can be counterproductive and lead to emotional withdrawal. The practice of open communication should be an ongoing journey, not a one-time event. Conversations should be regular and authentic, allowing relationships to evolve and develop over time. This continuous effort can lead to personal and collective growth, creating an environment where everyone feels valued and understood. Reflecting on the silences in our lives is an essential step toward growth. Questions like, what kind of silences am I allowing? And what words are still stuck in my throat? Can help identify areas that need attention. As we explore these questions, we may uncover the truths that need to be spoken, and this discovery can be liberating. Silence doesn't have to be an enemy. It can be a space for reflection and understanding, as long as it is balanced with communication. Encouraging meaningful dialogues is crucial for building healthy relationships. Every step taken toward communication is a step toward mutual understanding and empathy. Ultimately, transforming silence into dialogue is a valuable skill that we can all cultivate. In doing so, we not only enhance our relationships but also foster an environment where emotions can be expressed freely and human connections can flourish. This practice is not only beneficial for ourselves, but also for those around us, creating a cycle of understanding and support that can spread and positively impact the community as a whole. In an increasingly connected world, the paradox of silence becomes more evident. Technology provides us with tools for instant communication, but paradoxically, it can intensify the feeling of disconnection. Text messages, emails, and social media often replace face-to-face conversations, creating a facade of interaction that can be superficial. This phenomenon contributes to a culture where unspoken words accumulate and true communication becomes a rarity. When interactions are limited to digital exchanges, silence intensifies. Misunderstood phrases, the lack of tone and emotion in written messages, and the absence of facial expressions can lead to misunderstandings. Instead of building connections, these interactions can create distance. People may feel more isolated, even when they are connected. This reality highlights the importance of reviving face-to-face dialogue, where human contact and empathy can flourish. Returning to meaningful conversations requires a conscious effort. It is essential to create moments to gather, whether in a cafe, at home, or in a park. These meetings provide the opportunity to look each other in the eyes, listen attentively, and share life experiences. A calm and welcoming environment can make all the difference for people to feel comfortable opening their hearts. Additionally, active listening is an essential skill to be developed. Listening does not mean merely waiting for your turn to speak. It is an engaged process that involves understanding the emotions and concerns of the other person. This can be challenging, especially when conversations address painful feelings or difficult experiences. However, when practiced, active listening can transform the dynamics of conversation, creating a space where everyone feels safe to express themselves. Recognizing that each person has their own timing is equally important. Some people may open up more easily, while others may take longer to share their vulnerabilities. Patience is a virtue that should be cultivated in relationships. Forcing conversations or pressuring someone to talk before they are ready can do more harm than good. Respecting the other person's pace is fundamental to building a healthy relationship. When the silence is broken, it's not uncommon for intense emotions to arise. The vulnerability that surfaces can be difficult to handle, but it also signals growth. The conversations that emerge from this point of vulnerability have the power to strengthen bonds and create a deeper understanding. It's a process where the fear of being judged is replaced by mutual acceptance. It's also important to be aware that not every conversation will lead to a positive outcome. Some discussions can be challenging and lead to misunderstandings. However, facing these difficulties is essential for the growth of relationships. Healthy confrontation, when done with respect and empathy, can lead to greater clarity and understanding. Another aspect that warrants attention is the need for feedback. After a meaningful conversation, it's helpful to take stock. Asking how the other person felt after the discussion can open the door for more dialogue and help everyone process their emotions. This feedback can indicate how to improve communication in the future and reinforce the connection established. Furthermore, the practice of gratitude can be a powerful tool in relationships. Recognizing and thanking the other person for opening up is a way to validate their emotions and strengthen the bond. This recognition not only reinforces positive behavior, but also creates an environment where communication is valued. Building a safe space for communication requires a continuous commitment. As people become more comfortable sharing their feelings, conversations become more frequent and profound. This process is gradual and demands patience, but the results are transformative. Relationships that were once marked by silence begin to thrive in an atmosphere of support and understanding. Vulnerability, often seen as a weakness, reveals itself to be a powerful strength. When people allow themselves to be vulnerable, they connect in a more authentic way. This authenticity serves as the foundation for meaningful and lasting relationships. By opening up, individuals may discover that they are not alone in their struggles, which can be an immense relief. It's also essential to cultivate empathy in interactions. When you put yourself in someone else's shoes, you can better understand their pain and challenges. This empathy can act as a catalyst for open communication, allowing people to feel seen and heard. Thus, the building of healthy relationships becomes a joint effort, where each person contributes to the well-being of the other. Ultimately, the transformation of silence into dialogue is a journey worth taking. By facing and exploring underlying emotions, individuals not only strengthen their relationships, but also foster an environment of personal growth. The willingness to open up, listen, and validate each other's experiences creates a cycle of support and understanding that benefits everyone. This process is not without challenges, but the rewards are undeniable. By allowing words to flow and emotions to be expressed, silences become spaces for reflection and connection. Instead of feeling heavy, these moments of pause can be transformed into opportunities for growth and mutual understanding. Communication is a skill that can be developed and refined, and each step in this direction is a step toward a more connected and meaningful future. Communication is not merely an exchange of information, it is a bridge that connects people. When it breaks down, what remains is an emptiness that can become unbearable. This emptiness can be especially difficult to navigate during critical moments, such as during a crisis or a life transition. In these situations, a lack of dialogue can intensify anxiety and fear, creating a cycle of uncertainty that continues indefinitely. To break this cycle, it's essential for people to be able to express their concerns. This requires not only courage, but also an environment that embraces vulnerability. When people feel it is safe to speak, they are more likely to share their worries. This can be challenging, especially in contexts where open communication hasn't been encouraged. An important step to facilitate this communication is to establish norms that promote honesty. This can be done in various situations, such as in work meetings or family gatherings. By setting clear expectations about what is required in terms of communication, individuals will feel more comfortable opening up. This kind of structure can help create a space where everyone feels valued and heard. Active listening is an essential skill in this context. When you truly listen to what someone else is saying, you demonstrate that you value their words and feelings. This doesn't just mean listening to respond, but genuinely understanding the other person's perspective. By doing this, you not only validate the other person's experience, but also open the door to a deeper dialogue. Another effective strategy is to ask open-ended questions. Instead of questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, questions that encourage reflection and emotional expression can create an environment conducive to communication. Questions like, "How did you feel about that?" or "What changes would you like to see?" can spark meaningful conversations. It's equally important to recognize that communication is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Often, a conversation may serve just as a starting point. After the initial exchange, there may be a need to revisit the topic at a later time. This allows individuals to process what was discussed and become more open as they feel comfortable. These ongoing interactions help strengthen relationships. Over time, people may become more skilled at expressing their emotions and concerns. This practice not only enhances communication, but also fosters a sense of belonging and mutual support. When individuals feel that their voices are heard, they become more engaged and connected. Additionally, self-reflection plays a crucial role in this process. It is important for each person to examine their own emotional barriers and how these may impact communication. Often difficulties in opening up are tied to past experiences that left an imprint. By recognizing these influences, individuals can work to overcome them and become more open to dialogue. On the flip side, it is also essential to be receptive to others' emotions. When someone opens up, they may reveal intense feelings that need to be handled with care. Empathy is a vital skill at this moment. Being able to put oneself in another's shoes and understand their pain or insecurity can facilitate communication and promote a supportive environment. Creating a safe space for communication also involves the willingness to deal with discomfort. Often, the most difficult conversations are the ones that need to happen the most. This can mean addressing issues that have been avoided for a long time. By doing so, individuals may discover that these conversations not only relieve tension, but also open doors to a deeper understanding. It's important to remember that not all conversations will result in consensus. Sometimes differences of opinion are inevitable. However, the way these differences are handled can make all the difference. Approaching disagreements with respect and openness can help strengthen relationships, even amidst disagreements. The practice of gratitude can also be a useful tool in this process. Acknowledging the other person's effort in sharing their vulnerabilities not only validates their emotions, but also creates an environment where communication is valued. This gratitude can strengthen bonds and encourage people to continue opening up in the future. Communication is a skill that can be improved over time. As people become more comfortable expressing their feelings, conversations become more frequent and deeper. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that requires patience and commitment. The willingness to open up and listen is essential for building healthy and meaningful relationships. Silence doesn't have to be a barrier. It can be transformed into a space for reflection and understanding. By encouraging meaningful dialogues, people can create an environment where empathy and understanding flourish. It's crucial to continue reflecting on the impact of silence and unspoken words. This awareness can help identify areas that need attention and foster an environment where communication is valued. Transforming silence into dialogue is a valuable skill that can benefit not only personal relationships, but also the community as a whole. In a world where digital communication often replaces face-to-face interactions, reviving in-person dialogue becomes even more important. Creating moments to gather and connect can help overcome the challenges posed by silence. This practice of communication is not only beneficial for personal relationships, but also for the emotional well-being of everyone involved. As people become more open and willing to listen to each other, family and social dynamics can transform for the better. Silence, when approached proactively, can become an invitation for communication and connection. This journey is a vital step toward building a more connected and meaningful future. Before you head out, do two things right now. Take a deep breath and hold on to what touched your heart today. And if it feels right, share this story with someone who also needs to hear it.